king of German mercenaries.
Chapter 52, Baron Texel. Yes, this unfortunate count was left behind by Charles VIII as a cover, and then was surrounded by us and the Venetians. When he saw that the situation was hopeless, he surrendered. That's really unlucky. You know, a count is qualified to be the commander of an army. The commander of the army of the Holy Roman Empire is Frederick II, the Count of Hohenzollern. But this unlucky French man was captured by a 17-year-old knight. I guess he will be too ashamed to see anyone in the future. Your Majesty, what did you say? The imperial commander who captured me was only 17 years old. After meeting the emperor, Count Fleur of Toulouse learned this news that made him very embarrassed. Yes, Knight Marin is a 17-year-old young man. Moreover, he is just a phalanx commander. Maximilian I said proudly. What? Knights. Phalanx leader. Impossible, the army besieging us must be more than one phalanx, there must be thousands of people. There must be a legion. Frere didn't want to admit that he was defeated by a phalanx. He had 5,000 men under his command. 5,000 knights were defeated by an infantry phalanx, he could just find a belt and hang himself. Not only him, even his men who were captured together would never admit this. Otherwise, they would have no business in the future. He is indeed the leader of the phalanx, but he used more than one phalanx to defeat you. He also joined forces with the Venetian army, with a total of more than 4,000 people. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people. The emperor was an honest man and didn't bother to lie. But he didn't know that the news he knew was a lie. I see. Count Frere felt better after hearing the emperor say this. After sending Frere away, Marin came to the emperor to discuss the disposal of the spoils. How much loot is there in total? Asked the emperor. There are a total of 1,000 war horses, 3,000 sets of plate armor, 3,000 two-handed swords and several oak lances. Marin reported. In fact, there were 3,600 very good draft horses hidden by Marin. This. So much? The emperor stuttered after hearing this. Although he had expected this, he was still a little excited to stutter when he heard that there were so many spoils of war. Certainly, then do you have anything to hide? The emperor suddenly looked at him with a sharp gaze. Well, I hid some draft horses, and the war horses were handed over. Your Majesty, I also want to make money, right? Marin said naturally. In this year, mercenaries began to rise. The biggest characteristic of mercenaries is greed. Maximilian I has been prepared to let mercenaries embezzle some money since he started using mercenaries. Of course, he absolutely does not tolerate embezzlement of important military supplies. Draw horses. Can you swear that you don't have a war horse in your possession? I swear in the name of God that I have not kept a war horse privately. Otherwise, I will fall into hell after I die. Marin swore solemnly. In fact, he did not keep the horses privately. Because he did not keep the other 1,000 horses privately, but sold them directly to the Venetians. The emperor didn't care about the draft horses because they had no military value. He also had no direct experience of Marin's private collection of some. If he knew that Marin had 3,600 draft horses, he might have turned hostile. What are your plans? The emperor asked Marin. Your Majesty, as far as I know, this batch of prisoners can be exchanged for at least 1 million Italian ducats from the French. And the war horses are said to be worth at least 100 gold coins each. And a set of armor is worth dozens of gold coins. Stop, what do you want to say? What I want to say is that these captives and spoils are too valuable. I wonder what title your Majesty intends to confer on me. Title? Maximilian I was caught off guard by Marin's sudden turn. Of course, it is a great shame for the French to have 4,000 knights captured. As for me, I have made great contributions to the country and earned great honor for your Majesty. The equipment of these prisoners is estimated to be worth millions of gold coins, which can directly buy a large earldom. I will present them all to your Majesty, please see. Ha! Maximilian I laughed. He was not afraid of his subordinates asking for something, but was afraid of them not asking for anything. If they asked for something, he could use conditions to win them over and control them. What do you want? Title, hereditary title, and territory. Then what kind of title do you want, and where will the territory be divided? As Marin said, he had made such great contributions that he was indeed qualified to be granted a title and a territory. Therefore, the emperor could not be stingy. Otherwise, no one would serve him. Why did the Swabian League pledge allegiance to the emperor? They actually wanted to be promoted to a higher title and gain more territory through the emperor. For example, the county of Württemberg, because of its strong support for the emperor, had its lord, Count Eberhard V of Württemberg, promoted to Duke of Württemberg, called Eberhard I, on July 4, during the emperor's stay in Worms. Therefore, the emperor did not mind giving his subordinates a higher title. However, the emperor was reluctant to give up the territory. "The Netherlands is a very good place," Marin said loudly. Anyway, he didn't expect the emperor to agree to any conditions he put forward, but waited for bargaining. The Western emperors did not have as much authority as the Eastern emperors. In private, Marin could still put forward conditions without worrying about being beheaded at the Meridian Gate. "Don't dream, that's the place I value most. But I love the sea," Marlin said innocently. In fact, Marin really wanted to participate in the Age of Exploration. The Netherlands was an important region in the Age of Exploration, with developed commerce and shipping. "Don't even think about becoming an earl. The title of vice-earl, viscount, is also a bit high." "Why? Aren't my military achievements enough? There are still spoils worth hundreds of thousands of gold coins." Marin was a little excited. He was willing to hand over these spoils, wasn't it just for the title? "If he doesn't give me the title of earl, I will accept it. If he doesn't give me the title of viscount, it's really bad." "Knight Marin, calm down first. Have you thought about your identity? You are only 17 years old, and you are still a wandering knight from a small knight family. Although you have made great contributions in this battle. But, have you ever thought about it? You are only a knight now, and I promoted you temporarily before the war. If I suddenly make you an earl now, what will other nobles think? Besides, you only captured an earl. It's impossible that I will make you an earl just because you captured an earl, right? If you captured Charles VIII and I made you an earl, no one would have any objection, but you didn't do it." Marin rolled his eyes. "Damn it, I want to catch Charles VIII, but I don't have enough manpower." What Maximilian I said made sense. If Marin won a battle, he would be promoted from a knight to a count. If he won more battles, wouldn't he become a king? Is this possible? Moreover, this was only Marin's first battle. If Marin helped the emperor fight more battles, how should the emperor confer him a title? Marin calmed down. He knew that he had thought too simply. Count Tilly was named a count because he had served the Holy Roman Empire for many years, fighting against Turkey and Protestant princes, including many beautiful battles such as the Battle of White Mountain. Wallenstein was named a duke because he appeared in front of the emperor as a savior when the emperor was about to die. The emperor could only rely on Wallenstein at that time, so he could only use the high position of duke to win over Wallenstein, the only one he could rely on. But now, Maximilian I was not at the end of his rope, and he had only helped the emperor win a battle once. Although the victory was brilliant, he was not immediately made a count. If I don't confer the title of earl, I feel that I will suffer a great loss. You know, the Teutonic Knights only spent 19,000 cologne marks to purchase the Principality of Estonia from Denmark. 1 cologne mark equals 2.67 ducats, 19,000 marks is equivalent to 50,000 ducats. But considering that the silver content of the cologne mark in 1346 was full value, which is twice the silver content now, it is equivalent to 100,000 ducats now. Ha, you're right, young man. The Teutonic Knights did buy the Principality of Estonia for only 19,000 cologne marks. But have you ever thought about it? The Teutonic Knights themselves are a powerful country. They have enough status and identity to buy and protect territory. And you, Knight Marin, even if you have so much money, do you have the corresponding title and status to rule such a large territory? Without status, other nobles can blatantly annex your territory. Therefore, the title itself is very valuable. And, Knight Marin, you are receiving a salary from me. Most of these spoils should belong to me. Well. Then, your majesty, what kind of title will you give me and where will you place me? Marin said dejectedly. Marin admitted that he had thought too simply. In his later life, he worked as a salesperson. For each house he sold, his commission was only 0.5%. If he sold a house for 5 million, the company would give him 5 million, and the boss would make nothing. Before, as a time traveler, he thought too highly of himself and always thought that he and the emperor were equal in trade. Until now that Marin remembered that he was just an employee of the emperor. I've thought about it. I'll make you a baron first. Since you love the sea so much, how about I make you a baron here? Maximilian I took out a sheepskin map and pointed to an island near the Netherlands. Texel Island. Marin recognized it at first sight. Marin had studied the Netherlands and knew that there was an island called Texel in the Holland province of the Netherlands. This island, known as the miniature of the Netherlands, is a beautiful tourist area. Moreover, a rich second-generation friend of Marin in his previous life had taken a girl to travel to this island. Then, he showed off the photos on Weibo and wrote a detailed introduction to show off to poor people like Marin. Therefore, Marin had paid attention to this island in his previous life. You know this place? Maximilian I was a little surprised. After all, Texel Island is just a poor and remote place in the Netherlands. At most, the fishing industry there is prosperous. At present, the great voyages of discovery were only popular in Spain and Portugal. As for the Netherlands, the wind of discovery had not yet reached there. Therefore, the coastal areas were not given much attention. Well, I've seen the map of the Netherlands, and I was wondering where the Emperor would seal me. Then I will make you the Baron of Texel. The Emperor was very happy. This deal was extremely cost-effective for him. He got more than 1,000,000 gold coins, but he only had to pay for a small island that was not valued. Do I need to pay taxes? You want to evade taxes? Your Majesty, I have presented you with more than 1,000,000 gold coins, and you still want me to pay taxes? God knows it will take hundreds or even thousands of years for this broken island to pay 1,000,000 gold coins in taxes. Marin cried out in grievance. Okay, tax exemption, self-government, that's fine. Maximilian I really didn't care about such a remote island. God knows whether the island has 100 gold coins in tax every year. Even if Marin was exempted from tax, he didn't think much of it. Moreover, he got millions of gold coins, which was more than his annual fiscal revenue. He was very happy and didn't bother with Marin about those tedious details. Besides, the entire Netherlands region, currently Flanders, northern Belgium, is the most economically developed region in the Netherlands because of its developed wool textile industry, and is also one of the most important sources of tax revenue for the Emperor. However, the maritime trade in the Netherlands has not yet taken off. It was not until 1500 when the Portuguese chose to sell Indian spices in Antwerp that the maritime trade here began to develop. In other words, at present, except for the more developed Flanders region in the Netherlands, other places are not prominent. It was this idea that made the Emperor regret it later. Because at that time, Texel Island had become an extremely prosperous island, which made the Emperor very jealous. However, the Emperor could not get a single pfennig of tax revenue from Texel Island. This was because Marin specifically asked the Emperor to indicate permanent tax exemption in the appointment letter. Then, because of his outstanding military achievements, Marin was canonized as the Baron of Texel by the Emperor, and his fiefdom of Texel Island was granted the status of a tax-free imperial baron autonomous region. To this, the imperial parliament had no reaction. Because the Emperor used his family territory in the Netherlands to divide the fiefdom, which did not harm the interests of other nobles in the empire. Although the local parliament of the Netherlands was dissatisfied, the Emperor had not granted them a place like The Hague or Amsterdam, but just a small island. After expressing their dissatisfaction to the Emperor, they did not say anything. After all, in everyone's eyes, Texel Island was nothing special, it was just a slightly larger island. On this island, there is only a small, half-abandoned castle called Den Burg. In the rest of the island, there are only a few villages, most of which are fishing villages. Chapter 53, The Team Disbanded. Before leaving Italy, Marin sent Kohler with a group of his confidants to deal with the huge number of draft horses. He even had the audacity to ask the Emperor for 30 war horses. For this, Marin specifically promised that he would bring at least 30 cavalrymen with him the next time he went to war for the Emperor. Of course, among the war horses he asked for, there were 20 excellent uncastrated stallions and 10 excellent maras. European war horses are different from Eastern war horses. In order to make the war horses calm down and not to mess up because of picking up girls, the stallions of Eastern people are basically castrated. In Europe, whether a stallion is castrated depends on the knight's own wishes. Only those stallions with too bad tempers will be castrated. Some knights, influenced by Eastern customs, choose to castrate their male war horses. For example, among the 1,000 French war horses that Marin presented to the Emperor, there were more than 300 uncastrated stallions. Strictly speaking, uncastrated stallions and castrated stallions have their own characteristics. Uncastrated stallions tend to have a bad temper, are braver, have strong explosive power, but are difficult to control. The so-called fierce horses are mainly those uncastrated stallions. Castrated stallions, because they have no desires, often have a much better temper, almost the same as maras. Moreover, geldings have good endurance. Although their explosive power is not as good as that of uncastrated stallions, their endurance is enhanced. They no longer have desires, and eating, drinking and running become the most important things in their lives. Marin felt that it made sense that Eastern war horses could not compete with European ones in later generations. Easterners castrated excellent male horses to be used as war horses, leaving only inferior horses for breeding, which inevitably led to a decline in the quality of horses. This was because it did not conform to the principle of eugenics. Fortunately, the Mongolian horses in the east had strong vitality and a large base, so they did not become extinct. However, their overall quality did not improve. As for European war horses, many knights were unwilling to castrate male horses, which resulted in many excellent horses being used for breeding. Therefore, European horses became taller and taller. This is like saying that Yao Ming's children must be tall, while Pan Changjiang's children must not be tall. In ancient China, male horses like Yao Ming were castrated, while male horses like Pan Changjiang were retained. Therefore, Mongolian horses could never grow taller and even degenerated. This is because the tall horses were castrated and could not leave behind powerful offspring. Marin begged the emperor for a batch of war horses. Initially, the emperor refused. But considering that these war horses were captured by Marin and Marin promised to bring cavalry to the next battle, he reluctantly let Marin select 30 horses, but it was far from the 100 horses Marin expected. What a stingy emperor! Marin was very dissatisfied. But this was also his own problem. Who told him not to keep some good horses first? After they went into Maximilian I's pocket, he still wanted others to take them out. He was overthinking. Originally, the emperor thought that the fiefdom given to Marin was too barren, and wanted to reward him with some property. But Marin asked for war horses, so the emperor simply regarded the 30 war horses as an extra reward. As for the property that was originally intended to be rewarded, it was gone. If Marin knew about this, he would definitely jump up in anger. Because in order to obtain this batch of war horses, he also promised to contribute 30 heavy cavalry to the emperor in the next war. If he accepted the emperor's reward of property of equal value, he would not have to agree to this condition at all. On the other hand, Kohler only sold 1,600 of the 3,600 draft horses. Italy suffered a great loss from the war, and many wealthy people were robbed by the soldiers and became poor. Therefore, there were not many people who could afford to buy horses. The Venetians had difficulty in cash flow because they had consumed too many war horses and armor. Besides, why would they need draft horses after buying war horses? Which region did not have draft horses for sale? So, Marin had 2,000 draft horses in his hands. Damn, there are still 2,000 horses left, are you kidding me? Marin was a little surprised. He didn't want to open a horse farm. What did he need so many draft horses for? Every horse is a big eater. 2,000 horses can make a man go bankrupt. Well, that's not right. It seems that Marin can afford to keep these horses for now. There's nothing we can do. Italy was severely damaged by the war. Many wealthy people went bankrupt or fled to other places to avoid the war. Then we just keep these horses. Horse feed consumption is very high. Master, you have a territory now, how about we specialize in warhorse breeding? Warhorse breeding? Yes, there are frequent wars now, and the demand for war horses is also great. We can breed war horses and sell them to those nobles. Warhorse breeding is a good idea. Let's also take the lead in conducting a warhorse bloodline certification. Marin laughed. He planned to introduce some excellent warhorses such as Arabian horses and breed some excellent warhorse breeds. Kohler, go hire someone who knows about horses to help you select and find out the castrated stallions, and sell them when you return to the country. Also sell those not so strong uncastrated stallions. As for the mares, sell the particularly bad ones and keep the better ones. Marin had made up his mind to breed war horses. The quality of the French draft horses is very good, almost reaching the level of war horses, just a little short of it. Such horses can be used for breeding, and there is a high probability of breeding them into war horses. After the selection, Kohler kept 200 uncastrated male horses and 800 mares. In this way, on average each male horse will have 4 wives. Hee, I hope you don't suffer from kidney failure by then. Marin looked at the stallions with ill intentions. After returning to Germany, Kohler brought a group of trusted men and sold the other 1,000 draft horses one by one along the way. However, after returning to the country, the emperor also planned to disband most of the troops because there was no war for the time being. As for Marin's phalanx, the emperor originally planned to keep it. However, Marin was eager to manage his territory and was unwilling to stay in Vienna. Baron Marin, you have to think carefully. It will be easier to improve your status if you stay by my side. The emperor used status to tempt Marin. Your Majesty, is there a war to fight now? Should I stay in Vienna and waste my time? If I have time, I might as well go and build my barony. However, if your majesty wants to go to war, I promise to bring the army to serve your majesty. Marin was in a hurry to build the territory, but he did not give up the opportunity to upgrade his title. Baron is always a low-level title. Without the title of Earl, Marin was embarrassed to greet people and had to salute when meeting high-ranking nobles. He could only show off his power in front of the knights, which was really nothing. Moreover, Marin also found that he had never been in the officialdom in his previous life, and was a little immature in dealing with people. Instead of trying to play tricks with those black-bellied masters, it would be more comfortable to be a local emperor in his own territory. Okay, then you go back first. When I have a war, you must come. I swear on my knightly honor that I will come and serve your majesty. However, your majesty, if I accomplish great deeds, please do not forget to mention my title. Don't worry, if you make great contributions, I will definitely not treat you unfairly. Maximilian I was not stupid. Marin's great contribution made him earn more than 1 million gold coins, which was a huge profit. He wished Marin could make more great contributions like this. For a poor emperor like him, money was more important than face. But when Marin returned to his base outside Vienna, his mood immediately turned bad. It turned out that many of his men wanted to go home. Since Marin gave each of them 100 gold coins, many people were satisfied. Because this money was enough for them to go back to their hometown to build a house, buy land and marry a wife. For them, earning 100 gold coins was already the pinnacle of life. You know, the average German only earned 2 pfennigs a day, many poor people only earned 1 pfennig a day. In a year, it was only 730 pfennigs, equivalent to 3 pounds or 12 ducats. And 100 gold coins were equivalent to their salary for more than 8 years of work, which was a huge sum of money. Adding the salary given by the emperor before, and some small benefits they got privately in Italy, it was enough for them to return home in glory. Therefore, many soldiers began to want to leave. Marin also felt a little regretful. No wonder Frederick the Great did not allow Prussian soldiers to rob. It turned out that he was afraid that the soldiers would run away after robbing the money. But it was too late to say anything now. Since they wanted to leave, Marin would not force them. After all, it was not easy to support them now that there was no war. Besides, it would be difficult to lead the team if the people were scattered. It was better to let those who wanted to leave and find another opportunity to rebuild the team. Of course, this incident also taught Marin a lesson, that is, don't give money to your mercenaries casually. Because if those mercenaries get enough money, they may run away. However, Marin was considering that if he didn't give the mercenaries money, they would definitely not do it. However, he couldn't give the money right away, because many mercenaries might run away after getting the money. Therefore, the best way was for Marin to temporarily help the mercenaries keep the money, just like the time deposits in later generations. He would not cash out the money before the service period of several years, so that the mercenaries would not get the money and run away too early. As for Bowen Gardner, Hatter Bask sent by the Emperor, and Jason Chelsea sent by the Earl, as well as their men, they were recalled by the Emperor and the Earl. Because, Marin's team was obviously going to be temporarily disbanded by the Empire. And those three were the Emperor and the Earl's confidants, they couldn't be disbanded along with them, right? So, they were transferred back to the headquarters. Moreover, they also learned a lot of knowledge here in Marin, and they were still expected to train the troops when they returned. Then, after counting, Marin sadly discovered that of the original 1,100 men, 700 of them had run away. In an instant, Marin was left with only 400 men. Good brothers, you are loyal. Marin patted the chests of those brothers who were willing to stay and follow him, and was very moved. In fact, what Marin didn't know was that of the 400 people who stayed behind, only half of them were truly Marin's loyal confidants. The other half didn't want to go home because of their status. They were the sons of serfs and had low status. The original serf owners drove them away because they couldn't afford to support them, but they hadn't given up their slavery and made them civilians. If they took 100 gold coins home now, they might be robbed by the serf owners. Because, according to the law, the children of serfs are also considered the property of the serf owners. Isn't the property of the property the owners? If these serfs' children returned home with 100 gold coins, they would be at great risk of being robbed by their former serf owners. If they stayed in Marin's army, no serf owner would dare to rob them. As for those who returned home, most of them were civilians, or they were once serfs, but after being driven out of the manor by the serf owner, they had obtained civilian status recognized by legal documents. They were not worried about being robbed by the serf owner, so they rushed back home to live a good life. In other words, there are only 200 people who are loyal to Marin. Among them, 70 are from the first batch of people recruited by Marin. But Marin doesn't know, and thinks that these 400 people are all his diehards. Brothers, if you are willing, you can bring your families to Texel Island. I will arrange for people to build houses for you, and even introduce you to wives. Huh, really, Baron, are you really responsible for helping us find wives? Asked a subordinate who was ugly in appearance but brave in combat. I always keep my word. Marin patted his chest loudly. Long live Lord Marin. We want to marry a beautiful woman. Then, a group of brothers under him went wild. These people were born in poverty, but they were brave and courageous, and they were all good soldiers. Moreover, after this incident, Marin discovered their loyalty. Therefore, Marin planned to take them back to his territory and train them well. For this reason, Marin thought of Germany during World War I and World War II. At that time, Hitler relied on the 100,000 elite Wehrmacht soldiers left after World War I to quickly rebuild a huge army. And the 100,000 Wehrmacht soldiers before that became grassroots officers, fighting bravely with a group of recruits, accompanying the mustache to challenge the whole world. Marin planned to train these 400 people into excellent officers. In this way, the next time the Emperor summoned him again, he could quickly form a team based on these 400 people and charge into battle. Chapter 54 Syphilis Report. Marin was very sad after sending off the 700 brothers who had fought side by side with him. After all, they had fought together for 7 or 8 months. But before he had time to reminisce about the past, he was urgently summoned by the Emperor. Good afternoon, Your Majesty. In the Imperial Palace in Vienna, Marin met Maximilian I again. Baron Marin, I have a difficult matter to ask you. Speaking. Some of these French prisoners have developed strange symptoms. Disgusting pustules have begun to grow on their bodies. Syphilis. Marin exclaimed. When he was in Italy, he was so excited about the huge amount of spoils he had obtained that he forgot about this matter. Syphilis. The Emperor had never heard of it, so he was a little confused. Your Majesty, this is what I heard from my teacher. This malignant disease called syphilis originated from the West Indies, the place discovered by Columbus. Columbus? I know. He said he discovered the route westward to India. Columbus discovered the New World in 1492. Now 3 years have passed, and Maximilian I has also learned the news. In fact, what Columbus discovered was not India at all, but an area inhabited by a barbaric tribe. Are you sure? Maximilian I was a little skeptical. Because Western Europeans had never been to the real India. My teacher has been to the real India. Oh, really? What is the real India like? The so-called India, discovered by Columbus, has yellow-skinned people. In real India, there are mainly 2 types of people. One is the white people from West Asia who are similar to Arabs, and the other is a race with very dark skin. So where did Columbus go? It's a wild continent in the West with a low level of civilization. Moreover, this terrible syphilis was also brought from the West Indies. How did it come? According to my teacher's inference, one of Columbus's sailors had sex with local indigenous women in the West Indies and contracted this disease. Then, as you know, the sailor was a Spaniard, and he went to Sicily, and had sex with a local prostitute. The client then took the disease to Naples, which is close to Sicily, and then passed it on to the prostitutes in Naples, and then it spread in Naples. It just so happened that the French invaded Naples, and the French soldiers could not control themselves and patronized those infected prostitutes, and the disease spread within the French army. It is said that this time tens of thousands of French people went, and only more than 10,000 returned intact, but 4,000 were captured by us. So severe. Maximilian I gasped. How severe and terrifying is a disease that destroyed tens of thousands of troops? According to the information I got in Italy, only about 10,000 people died from this disease in the French army, but it caused an unparalleled panic and low morale among the French army. Otherwise, Charles VIII would not have led his army to flee north and let me take advantage of him. You know, even during the escape, the French army caused the Italian coalition to suffer a great loss. Maximilian I nodded, he knew the intelligence in this regard. The French army, which fled in panic, still killed and wounded 2,000 Italians, while the Italians only caused 1,000 casualties to the French army. We have to thank this disease, otherwise, the French would not retreat so easily and might fight us to the end. You know what kind of people the Italian army is. If the Imperial Parliament does not support a total war, we will not be able to defeat the complete French army. However, this disease is extremely easy to spread. Your Majesty, please be very careful. What? Is it serious? Yes, this disease, as long as there is a relationship, there is a high chance of infection. Your Majesty, think about it, if a person who came back from Italy was infected with this disease. Then, he went to Vienna to find a prostitute and infected the prostitute with the disease. Then, the soldiers in Vienna also went to find this prostitute and were also infected. Maximilian I was terrified before he finished speaking. If the army in Vienna was infected with syphilis in large numbers, the Hungarians could easily conquer Austria again. My dear, what is your solution? There is no other way. We can only ask the soldiers to abstain from sex for a period of time. Otherwise, if the army in Vienna is infected with this disease and loses its combat effectiveness, it will not be able to resist the invasion of the Hungarians. I'm afraid the soldiers will rebel. Maximilian I was worried. It's all right, Your Majesty. Just tell them the consequences of this evil disease and publicize the miserable plight of the French in Naples, and they will know what to choose. Which is more important, life or temporary pleasure? Well, you have a point. But, among the 2,000 prisoners, dozens of them seem to have contracted this disease. What should we do? If they die, we won't get the ransom. As soon as Maximilian I opened his mouth, his poor nature was exposed. He was not worried about the safety of the French, but worried about not getting the ransom. How long have those people been having seizures? It just started. It seems that it was in the incubation period before and has just erupted. That's not bad. I may be able to suppress this evil temporarily, but I can't eradicate it. However, as long as I hold out until I get the ransom, it will be fine. That's good, that's good. Maximilian I's eyes lit up. As long as he could get the ransom, it would be fine. As for the future, he didn't care if those French people died. So, Marin proposed a very primitive treatment method, applying mercury and sulfur externally. This is just a way to treat skin diseases, in which mercury is very toxic. However, if it is only used externally, it is also acceptable as long as the dosage is controlled. Although this method cannot cure the disease, it can greatly slow down the onset of syphilis and suppress it to a certain extent. Some mild patients may even be cured. Afterwards, Maximilian I decisively found a hot spring with a strong sulfur smell and asked the dozens of French people to soak in it to kill the germs. In addition, he also asked them to apply some mercury on their affected parts. In order to prevent the outbreak of syphilis in the Holy Roman Empire, Maximilian I issued an edict, introduced the origin of syphilis, used the official name, syphilis, to define the disease, and strictly prohibited any prostitute from receiving guests from Italy and France, otherwise they would be put to death. At the same time, those who went to Italy and France were strictly prohibited from visiting prostitutes, because, according to Marin's speculation, syphilis had inevitably spread in Italy and France. Unless everyone practiced abstinence, this stubborn disease could not be eradicated.